Welcome back, everybody. I am very excited, and again, my voice is not very excited because I'm actually kind of pretty chill right now. That's my energy at the moment. But I'm very excited because today is a special show. I get a chance to do two things that we haven't done before. I get a chance to speak to an actor who I've admired and liked since 2008 in Austin Basis, who we'll talk to in a second. And today, and he marks our 50th interview on the show. So it's a great occasion. Yeah, pat myself on the back.
Pat yourself. I'll pat you on the back.
Thank you,
Social
thank you.
distance, of course.
Yes. So welcome to the show, Austin. I really am happy that you're the 50th. I really liked the film that I saw you in, which we'll get into a little bit later, and it's befitting. It really is. It feels good.
Well, it's when did you start this thing? You didn't start this that long ago, right? And to get through 50 actors, it's pretty impressive.
It's May 20th. May 20th, Michael Kostroff was the first interview. God bless him. He's a wonderful human being. And he was the first. And I kind of started going at a breakneck pace. And, you represent me entering the next phase where I'm not going to be doing 5 or 6 episodes a week. I can breathe now. I'm all right.
Yeah, you've gotten, what is this, the silver anniversary?
I think so.
I don't know. 25 is silver, maybe.
We're supposed to look that up.
I don't know.
Listen, what kind of a guest are you? You're not even sure what the anniversary gift is. This is not good on your end.
That's right. So, I'll send you a silver medallion.
Sounds great. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens, right? You get to a certain level of shows, and now you start asking gifts, from the guests that you bring on. Absolutely not. I'm not doing it.
My presence isn't enough for you, Alan?
It's more than enough. I'm just grateful that you're on, man. That's again, I'm doing this because it feels surreal to me, and we'll get into kind of your part in a second. But it feels surreal that literally, 2.5 months ago, I was sitting here thinking it would be great to talk to some people who I've watched and who I've admired, and get a chance to ask them some questions about their career, about their life. What's it really like on set? What works for them? What doesn't? And now is this. I sometimes look at my life and think, what the hell is happening? It doesn't seem real. It's a very interesting feeling.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty awesome to find in this time of quarantine, or whatever they'll call it years from now, the time of coronavirus, that all these creative outlets and products have come out of this. One of them being the connection of people kind of moving beyond the 140, 160 characters and really reaching out and connecting, whether it's through Instagram Lives, Zoom calls, go-to meetings, or interview shows like yours. I think there's also creative ventures being done. I think there's a slight limit to that, but I think the connection of people who enjoy acting and filmmaking and TV, this is a fun way to share that stuff, especially when so much of us, including myself and my wife, have depended on TV and films to get us through these past 6 months, as a time of sitting in your house. There's only so much time I could do drawing or writing. I like to kind of turn off and turn on the TV or the computer or the Roku or the Apple TV or whatever people use, and just binge a show, watch a movie you've always wanted to see, rewatch a movie or a TV show that you miss and want to kind of get nostalgic about. It's a interesting time.
Absolutely. I've done the same. And by the way, Amazon Prime and Netflix, we didn't want to miss you. We love you. We'd love for you to be a sponsor.
Yep.
Moving on. So absolutely. I watched kind of the new shows that I wanted to watch once billions as other productions got halted, so I couldn't watch the rest of those. But that's how I got onto Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which was an amazing show. I discovered it because I had time. I started rewatching some shows that I love. I am halfway through West Wing again.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's
Yeah.
I'm very predictable. When people watch the show, they know exactly what I'm going to say. There has to be at least one West Wing reference.
Yeah.
What I haven't done, and I haven't come up with a little thing yet, but I will, like in Psych, which is my one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah.
In Psych, there has to be a pineapple, or at least a reference to it in every episode. I need to start doing something like that. So far, West
Yeah.
Wing has been that for me.
Yeah. There it is. That's all you need.
Yep, that's it. Perfect. All right, so let's get to you. How does a nice Jewish kid growing up in Brooklyn who wanted to be a backstop for the Mets, who went to school to be a doctor, end up an actor?
Well, I could recite to you my so my college essay was that a lot, when I was applying to all these I mean, not grad schools, but you have a college essay. I think it was undergrad, but my college essay started with, or the kind of thesis statement was, I not only want to be a doctor in real life, but I also want to play one on TV. Because I was going pre-med and growing up with diabetes led me down that path. But I think even before I was diagnosed with diabetes, I grew up in a family and just a community that appreciated theater. Every year for the Christmas holiday week, we'd go see a musical. My parents did plays when I was a kid. My favorite holiday was Halloween, and I mean, I loved magic, and I loved dressing up and that type of stuff, and makeup, and I would even like collect my mom's and grandmother's old makeup like this is like makeup, right? I wouldn't use it as like lipstick, and I would use the red lipstick for blood, and do it coming down my mouth to be a vampire and get like the glow in the dark vampire teeth. And I lived close by to a costume place that I would go to frequently. And I would always get it, something. And for like my birthday, when I had some, money in the piggy bank, I would get like a mask. Or so we had a Batman mask, we had a gorilla mask, and I had multiple capes. I had Superman underoos. Like I would keep the red cape. I would keep the black cape. I had to have red and black, one for Superman, one for Dracula. But yeah, it was a constant thing where, I think, I can't speak for kids coming over my house, but everyone knew I had a costume chest. And so when people would visit my parents, friends with kids that would come in from Long Island and New Jersey, and visit for the day on a Sunday or Saturday, they knew they were coming over and that there was going to be costumes to dress up and put on. And I didn't have many tutus for the girls, but I think it was a constant creative expression that was welcomed and encouraged in a sense, because it wasn't like I was going out and doing bad things. It was, we were playing in the playroom with costumes, and occasionally we would put on shows for the adults, or I had a front porch that was like 3 steps up, and we would do performances that we had practiced for our neighbors and our parents. That happened less frequently. That took a lot of organization. So I'm much more of an actor, writer, as opposed to an organizer, producer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so growing up, I also played sports. dare I say, that would be my first love, baseball. And, that was the main sport I played growing up. I also played basketball and hockey. But baseball, if I had to choose one sport that I played and enjoyed watching, it would be baseball. My dad was a huge Brooklyn Dodgers fan. When they left, he felt betrayed. But then the Mets came along, and he's been a Mets fan since 1962. And so my brother and I, when we were born to bleed blue and orange. And so those are the Mets colors. And just, I think we lucked into a time period when the Mets were really a good team. Early 80s, not so much. Mid to late 80s, they were one of the best teams in the majors. And so growing up playing Little League, watching the Mets and seeing them, especially in 1986 when they won the World Series, my favorite player, and still to this day, my favorite player of all time, was catcher Gary Carter. Only played for the Mets for like 5 or 6 years, but Hall of Fame catcher, great guy. They called him the Kid. He had a smile on his face all the time, played through injuries, but he was like the guy who didn't need to do the fanfare and celebrate, played the game, played it hard, and didn't feel the necessity, which I feel like is a weird thing in the majors, where you can't show joy or you can't like show discouragement when something goes wrong, or it's a professional game. So some people and kids growing up playing Little League, you're taught to like tamp that stuff down. Like you can't cry, don't cry, or like when you hit a home run, you can't celebrate too much because it's like, so it kind of takes that spectrum of emotions and whittles it down to this like narrow thing where it's only now an internal love of the game and appreciation and stuff. And I wish it was different, but he always had that smile on his face, and they called him the Kid. So he was a kid at heart. And so as an actor too, I feel like I still strive to incorporate that into my work, and that sense of play and that sense of imagination, and then as I got older, I was a late bloomer. And so all those hopes and dreams and I was good. I played, it was like, usually one of the best on the team, if not the best, one of the best in the league that I played in. And I just, as the years developed through my, early teens and late teens, I just got outsized and developed. And I feel like, I felt at that time, I'm like, wow, just because I'm hitting puberty later than everyone else means they're better than me, or they can hit the ball farther than me, and they're regarded as, just because they're developing quicker, they're better. They're considered better because of all those reasons. They're faster, throw the ball harder, and hit the ball farther, which are some of the requirements that make you good. But at that age, when you're a late bloomer, you fall behind the curve, and you either catch up when you do, kind of go through puberty and develop, or you find something else that makes you happy. And I think that's where I really dove into acting in college, when I didn't make the baseball team. And I tried out for every position. That was probably my problem, because they did pitching tryouts first, and I threw out my arm. And so all the other tryouts were later. And so I wound up just trying out for catcher and catching the ball the whole time. And, I was small, so I wasn't fast. And it was a whole combination of elements that, pushed me and like made the decision clear that, maybe I'll play sports and play baseball, which I wound up doing in LA with my brother out here in an amateur league. But, it's the pure enjoyment of the game and watching it as a fan. But it was really, what can I do as a career that's going to make me happy, and in which I'll also be able to make a living. And to
And you
me,
chose acting?
well, at that point, I only had two choices. I mean, I tell you, I took every science course. I took one semester of every science course. I think with bio and chem, I took them at the same time. Didn't turn out well. I thought I'd take physics first because I was better at math, and actually did pretty well at physics because math was a subject that I excelled at and came easy. Ironically, as an actor, English and the stuff like usually theater majors are English majors or minors or are avid readers and creative writers or history buffs, like, you know, people that enjoy those two subjects. And I would say maybe history is my second favorite. So actually science was. So it was math, science, history, and then English was last because I was a slow reader and it just, you know, it's still a struggle today as a reader. I probably have some sort of, dyslexia or, learning disability, but, I have to read, so I do.
Yeah.
So getting through college and, coming back to acting and following through on that education and really making the choice and calling my parents junior year and saying, this is it. If I'm going to succeed at this, I have to major in it, and I can't be just good at everything. I have to try to be great at one thing, which had been a habit of mine, and it still is in a way. It's like a fallback. It's a fail-safe where if I'm just good at a lot of things, I could tout that as, an ego boost, right? But when it comes down to career and succeeding and excelling at the highest level, you can't really just be good at something. You have to at least be on the path to greatness and try to be as good as possible. And if not, keep trying, like keep taking class. Like, Tim will tell you, like, that stuff it's a lifelong journey towards not perfection, but perfecting, perfecting the science that, and this kind of art of reenacting life.
Yeah, very cool. Few things, because I know coming back into what some of the things that you mentioned, for those who are DC fans, they're going to immediately jump all over you and say, I'm sorry, Superman also had a black cape too. Superman had both.
Right.
So
That's
we
right.
acknowledge you. If you're watching, we hear you, we understand you, we're moving on. So
that was when I was like 6 years old. I wasn't quite aware of the different incarnations of Superman or the different comic book versions of him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's don't apologize to me. I just wanted to make that known so we don't get a lot of comments in that regard for that specific thing.
Yes.
Second thing is it's very cool that you were taking things seriously, because I have been blessed and cursed with being good at many things, and it's always been a struggle to figure out what it is that one thing that I want to focus on. And I get it. And for you to say, no, I'm going to do this, to guts, and I really, really appreciate that and respect you for it.
Yeah, and my mom really was the one too that was like, what are you going to fall back on? I was like, if I have a fallback, I will fall back.
Yeah.
If I have something to fall back on, I will fall back on it, And so like the choice was clear, and, with encouragement from my teachers in undergrad, that one of my teachers, Gene Lesser, who passed away a year or two ago, unfortunately, but he's like, you have wildly great instincts, you're amazingly talented, but you're lazy. He used to call me lazy, and he's still on my shoulder whenever I'm slacking or need to do the work. That says, there's going to be 10 other actors like you that walk into any audition, any room, that are trained, prepared, and have worked harder than you. So the only option is to at least stay level with them, where you do the work, you put in the time. And in those days, as opposed to auditions, I think it was more of like continuing my education and going to grad school, which is where I met Tim at the Actor Studio Drama School, ironically, which is the only grad school I got into. Shows all those other guys now, right? That rejected my submissions and my auditions for Juilliard, Yale, NYU, Columbia, Rutgers.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't audition for that many, but I auditioned for some of the best. And you know, and maybe that wasn't my time to do that, but I think I found the right place and right home in the Actor Studio Drama School, because I still have a relationship with the Actor Studio as a member, and it's a never-ending collaboration and community of professional actors that are just there to continue to hone their craft, and you don't have to pay for it. That is very important in our industry, where there's a lot of classes, there's a lot of, you know, theater groups, there's a lot of teachers and coaches, but to have an institution where you can go every week and get any number of, you know, put up scenes, get comments from your contemporaries, get, you know, rehearsal training, dialect training, sensory training, like acting, method acting, kind of sensory workshops, and a number of other things. Even through the quarantine and through the pandemic, I've done classes online that have been just as gratifying and just as productive and inspirational for me, honestly, because that's really what it is. When you're not working, you're watching, and you get inspired by the work of other people, not only to do better work, but to work harder and to excel at your craft.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not know that that you could do that. Again, you're a lifetime member of the you know, actors training, but I didn't know that it's free and it's included. That is a very rare thing. Absolutely.
You have to be a member. You have to get in as a member, though. Like that's you know,
yeah,
not
you have
everyone
to,
gets it. That's unfortunate,
but I owe this show kind of to your plays, because you know, I watching James Lipton on Inside the Actor Studio. Those are the types of interviews that I wanted to do. I wanted to really speak and dive deep, and you know, not do 5-minute kind of segment conversations. So in a very direct way, this show was born because of what I've seen James do. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, James, like, he is like he is on the show in real life. You know, he passed away recently, so that was, I think he passed the torch enough with the show, but I think more importantly than the show is the appreciation of the craft of acting, and not just the celebrity and the achievements of actors. And I think that a show like this, like yours, I appreciate and enjoy, because it's about the real life, you know, struggles and achievements and battles of the, you know, your middle class actor who's out there trying to get better as an actor, but trying to make a living. And I think that's what his show was, at a very high level, having, you know, Academy Award winners and all that on the show, to find out how they got to where they were. And that was really helpful as a student, to see all these people that I had looked up to, and still do, to see how they started, what their the struggles and, you know, obstacles that they faced in their career that they overcome to get where they were. And it was funny, because for years in acting class, you'll get the look to your left, you look to your right. Only one of you is going to make it in this industry.
Yep.
That was even generous. When I would take my first acting class or theater class in college was theater history, and it was a 9 a.m. class on a Monday morning, and I walk in, and the professor was the tech, the guy in charge of tech for the theater department. He did lighting, he did the more behind the scenes stuff. And the first thing he says, most of you who are theater majors are probably not going to make it as an actor, so you should plan to have other theater and career options. And it's the idea that to walk into an interview with Richard Dreyfuss and him encouragingly and enthusiastically saying, this is before streaming, this is before web series, all the different outlets that actors can actually make a living. He was like, there is an opportunity to make a living as an actor. He's like, I'm proof of that. When I was coming up, only good-looking people and movie stars made a living. Everyone else had a, fight over scraps. But the one thing I remember him saying was, you can make a living as an actor. It's possible for all of you. And no one's ever said that. And, those interviews would throw out gems and nuggets and pearls that I feel like I held on to and kept. And obviously, when someone's talking to you, you always think they're talking about you. Even when they're like, look to your left, you look to your right, one of you is not going to make it. And even Tim said, is like, one of you only one of you will be doing theater and or acting in 10 years. And Tim and everyone like me was like, it's me. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. It's me. But that's how people think. It's like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. So when someone says all of you can make a living as an actor, that's an encouraging statement from an Oscar-nominated and seasoned veteran like Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Tim sitting next to you in those classes? I just want to make sure that he wasn't one of the ones.
Actually, Tim and I. So we're talking about Tim Davis. We haven't said his last name in this, but Tim and I are both members of the Actors Studio. But before we were members, we were in our class was called Cohort 5. So we were the 5th graduating class of the Actors Studio Drama School when it was at the New School University. It's at Pace University now. Yeah. So Tim and I actually did a thesis project. So our repertory season in our final semester of the 3rd year would be to present. It's like your final thesis. You do, as an actor, you choose a scene with another actor. It has to be 2 actors. A director would choose their scene, and they would cast actors in it. And we also had playwrights in the program. And so not only actors, directors, but also playwrights, the collaboration of those 3 skills and professions, I think helped me enormously as an actor and series regular on TV, and being a collaborator with a director and an actor, or creating a character with someone, not just getting a script and having to scramble and create it on your own, but it's like this 3-way dialogue of the actor, director, and writer. We were lucky enough to be picked for a playwright's thesis. And so Tim in grad school, Tim is only a year or 2 older than me. But in grad school, I looked much younger, no beard, a lot skinnier. I was getting cast as like teenagers. And then for 10 years after that, I was getting cast as teenagers. So I played Tim's stepson in a thesis project by a playwright called Safe, about a stepfather and a stepson who had lost the stepfather had lost his wife, and the stepson had lost his mother, and the stepson, my character, was acting out and bordering on violence, like physical violence, and starting to kind of go off the deep end. And it was this dysfunctional impasse between these two people, that two characters, that was a kind of, either we come together and make this work and try to make this weird situation where, you know, I'm not old enough to be your father, but I'm going to be your father, and you're going to behave and listen to me, and we'll both mourn the loss of your mom and together. So it was funny, but it was also really poignant, and you know, the best of what I think contemporary theater offers is that real look inside of, you know, the tragic circumstances that people find themselves in, and how they come out of it, sometimes, you know, begrudgingly, but usually with a little humor and a little hope. And I think those are the stories I gravitate toward. And I definitely wanted to say this. Tim, when I knew Tim I always thought of Tim as one of the actors in our class that was going to do well. You know, I think he fancied himself Sean Penn. You know, Sean Penn was a huge role model for Tim as an actor, not necessarily as a person. But I think Tim took the person part literally in college. He'll tell you himself. But I think he's evolved into the person that takes the acting skills of a Sean Penn as a role model. But as a method actor and someone who is going to go 150, 200% for every role, Tim had to play a character that was less nimble than me, right? And so, and much older than himself. So he was in his 20s at the time. He had to play a character in his late 30s. I was, you know, supposed to be a teenager. So we had to find a way to make the 2 or 3 years between us into 20 or 15.
Yeah.
And so I obviously grew my hair really long and shaved the sides and had like a flop top. And Tim on his side, which I thought was kind of a genius choice. I remember him wrapping his knees with tape every night because I'm not sure what his backstory was as the character, but the choice had a real practical purpose because at one point in the scene, he chases me around the living room and he can't catch up to me. And he needed, as a very nimble athlete, he was a football player, and judo, and at that time judo, but not MMA or jiu-jitsu yet. But he was quicker than me, and so he had to find a way to be not as quick. And instead of trying to fake it, he wrapped his knees as tight as he could so it would encumber him to the point where it was a struggle for him to get up, get to me, you know, catch me, because the character gets really mad at me and he didn't want to have to get really mad and then have to hold back. So things like that, to make practical choices like that, was a lesson I got from him early on, that I'd rather make as many real choices that inform my character decisions and emotions than I'm going to try to make something up or make some imaginary circumstance that's not there. I'd rather have a phone in my hand than try to make believe I'm having a phone, in addition to having an emotion and a thought process and all this stuff. Like, there's so many things that you need to make believe and expand your imagination as an actor. The more actual practical things you could have that, you know, free you up, I think is important. And Tim definitely was an early influence on that, those choices in my career.
That's a great choice. Good job, Tim, if you're watching this. And I guess, you
He
know,
better. I watched his whole interview.
yeah, and his interview was 2 hours. Well, ours is doing pretty well. We'll see how long this goes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I have to ask this the stupid question, but that came to mind, so I'm going to go with it. Was there any point, because I know you two are friends, that you still call him Pop, or nothing like that?
No. I forget his name. I know my character was Wally. He used to call me Wallace. The character, like I forget. He had a weird name, like Lane, or it was like a weird Kern. I think his name was Kern. So it was like an intentional choice for my character was Wally. He would call me Wallace as an
Yeah.
annoying thing, and then I would call him Kern instead of like Dad.
Got it. That's very funny.
Yeah.
All right, so let's come back to your kind of career
Yeah.
arc, because there are a lot of gold things there that I want actors to experience. Um, when you told your parents, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna really be studying this as opposed to being a doctor,"
Yeah.
I know you mentioned that your mom and your dad were both kind of putting on theater performances earlier on. Were they supportive? Did they try to talk you out of it? What was their reaction?
Well, I mentioned that my mom specifically was she had done theater in college too, and
Okay.
in high school. In New York and Brooklyn, there's a thing called Sing, where each grade puts on a show and competes against the other grades, and
Nice.
they write it, direct it. It's all student run, produced. The music is played by students, and we did it at my school too. But her school, obviously 30 years before me or 25 years before me, she had done it at her school, and they were both, I think, had normal careers, but they were creative and aspiring enough to, I think, at least give me the room to try it out. And again, my mom cautioned or encouraged me to have something to fall back on. And like we said, I was like, if I have something to fall back, I'm going to fall back. And if there's a net to catch me, I'm going to fall. And so, but I think there came like my first play in undergrad wasn't until my junior year because I was again New York Brooklyn accent. I kind of toned it down since then, unless I'm in Brooklyn and talking to friends and it gets a little loose, or I have to use it for a character. Um, but they both came up to see me in a production of Brighton Beach Memoirs, which kind of fell right into my wheelhouse. It was a Brooklyn. I grew up by Brighton Beach. I knew the area. Obviously, the story takes place 40, maybe 50 years before I grew up there, but I get a sense of the Jewish household, the dynamics, and that life and the character and the idea of being an older brother to a younger brother. And so I played the older brother in Brighton Beach, and I had auditioned to be Eugene Morris Jerome, but I got the part of Stanley, and so I am an older brother in real life, and it kind of just fell right into a place that was comfortable for me. The only thing I had to do the leap was the circumstances of the play and that time period and what the character was going through, and so. With a couple of acting classes under my belt that I never had any, basics. I started implementing all those things that I was learning, and my, I think, desire to go 150 to 200%, and really be full in character to the point where the guys smoked Lucky Strikes. And they have fake cigarettes that actors use on stage. I got real Lucky Strikes because again, if I'm smoking Lucky Strikes and I can get Lucky Strikes, why do I have to make believe that a Marlboro Light is a Lucky Strike? And so, yes, it was awful on my voice. And there was only like, I think 6 productions total separated by a weekend. But that was a play that they came up to visit. And I think they saw for the first time the potential and my, you know, my abilities after 2.5 years of acting class, or 2 years of acting classes, and, you know, moving beyond just memorizing lines and acting like what you're saying is real, and, you know, being having stage presence. I always had good stage presence, or I was told, and I felt part of that stage presence was, you know, performative. It was showing other people, you know, why I belonged here, like how good I was. In a nutshell, I was just trying to draw attention away from all the other actors with how good I was. I wanted to be the best, right? I'm very competitive. And so my stage presence when I was a kid was, you know, confession, merely a way of thinking of everyone looking at me at that moment. So assuming everyone's looking at you, you can't break character.
Yeah.
Right. So that helped me going forward. But then I moved into the area of how would I feel in this position? How does this character feel? Is it the same? What, where is the range of emotions? What is the stimulus? Is it something the character's father said, or my brother, or what happened at work? And can I relate to what happened at work, him getting fired, or do I have to substitute something that happened to me in real life? And so with all those things thrown into the mix, I feel like my parents saw that that work paying off, and I think really were impressed to the point where they took my choice seriously, to the point of encouraging it full-heartedly. And then the successive plays I did in college as well. But I think that was a turning point too, because junior year you have to, you know, kind of declare a major, and that's when I did it. And so that was when I was in Brighton Beach Memoirs. And so I feel like that was the point. I don't know when it was for them, but they've never been anything but supportive. Early on, financially letting me live at home for as long as possible, through grad school, and even a little afterwards. And so I think that gave me at least a cushion of support, not necessarily financial, because I mean, at some point I'm like, I'm paying my own bills. I'm not paying for the room. That was the big help. But they're coming to see all my productions. They're supporting when I have to work, and then when I have to take off work, and, you know, knowing that I'm making up enough money to do stuff for free, and then when I run out of money, making more money to do more stuff for free.
No, that's great that they supported you. I'm very happy about that.
They're my biggest fans.
Huh?
I said they're my biggest fans, you know?
Yeah. Well, you rewarded them, your first project. You rewarded all of their faith in you with a project called Porn and Chicken. I wonder how that went over.
Well, that was like interesting, because I had started working with my managers, Sandy Erickson and Vic Ramos. Shortly after school, we do a lot of, most grad schools do showcases where agents, casting directors, managers come to see a showcase of the graduating class, and then they get a sheet, you know, whole breakdown, bio, resumes, and all that, and then they'll request contact information for the people they're interested in. And so after my showcase, I got a couple of responses, but most of it was for commercial work, which is fine. I got sent out for a little bit, didn't do anything early on, but I graduated in 2001, so 9/11 happened, and I had, through a family connection, a person my dad worked with was supposed to meet managers, and so the managers that I met were Vic Ramos and Sandy Erickson, and, you know, that I'm still, Vic had passed away shortly into working, 2007 or so. But I've been with Sandy for my whole career. So that consistency, and what they did, which I don't think a lot of managers do, some do, and I'll give them credit. I always think of a manager and an agent, the difference between a manager and an agent. An agent is the one who gets you the work or gets you the audition and closes the deal, negotiates the deal. Managers are people who manage your career and create possibilities for you. So through Vic and Sandy, they would have me come in with dummy sides that had already been cast already, as if I was coming to audition for them. So I'd wait in their kind of like little waiting area, come in the office, audition, and then we talk about it and what I can improve and all that stuff. And at that point, coming out of grad school, I had monologues. So I was doing monologues for them and doing it like a theater audition, working on my voice, like shouting it, looking past them and, filling the room with my voice and my emotions. And I think they, I remember Vic saying once, you don't have to shout. You don't have to shout to let me know what you're feeling, even if you're angry. And so through this process, I kept doing it back from me. I wasn't even a client of theirs, but they were giving me time in a busy time for managers. And it was like pilot season, the beginning of pilot season and the heart of pilot season, where they were throwing me these, random sides that they thought I'd be good for and having me come in after I kind of went through my monologues. And they were like, all right, now we're ready to kind of throw some sides at you. It must have been 6-10 times I went in for them. And all of a sudden they started sending me out for stuff. And the second thing they sent me out for was Porn and Chicken. And I booked it. And it was the first time too that I read for a part. I was supposed to be part of the Porn and Chicken Club. But I had read for the part and I got cast. And then I show up or I get the script and I find out what I'm cast as, and it's not the part I auditioned for. And I was like confused by that. So that was like an early lesson in like when you're auditioning for it's a student thing that takes place on a college campus and there are a lot of student roles. They're not going to individually read every person that speaks. They'll choose a few sides, read everyone, and then cast everyone based on their choices into the other roles. And so I played interviewed student, one of the few characters I've had with no name. I take pride in no name. I take pride in named characters. That means at least someone says your name or you have an identity. And it was also the first experience I had with improv. On set, I had been doing improv with a group for a couple years on my own after school, but it was the first time on camera that I had been asked to like continue the scene as if it was going to be live coverage of a news feed. So it was like a news reporter and a student that is just walking on campus. She's like, hey, have you heard about the new? I was like, no, and I said my lines, and then we continued on. And the button of what they used in the actual movie was the improv line, and we watched it with a group of friends, and it was like got a big laugh, and it was like my coming of age, my first appearance on TV as a professional actor.
Congratulations. Well,
you can't find it anywhere, by the way. It's nowhere to be seen. It's not on any of the streaming services. I think there's a version on YouTube somewhere, but it's like someone taped it off their television. Yeah.
Interesting. My first one, again, your first one was Porn and Chicken. My first one, I was a featured extra on a independent flick. I don't remember the name. Again, I don't know if it's anywhere around. but it ended up being a gay, kind of a comedy, and I was there smoking a cigarette. I don't smoke, so they asked me to smoke a cigarette. I said, I'm sorry guys, I don't smoke. So they said, "Oh, but just pretending we're gonna cut things out." So I did it. So my first ever film is in a gay movie, smoking a cigarette. So all of us, Hollywood changes people, and that's what it's about.
What's really interesting about that is actually my first role in a film after grad school was not that. That came a couple years or a year after I graduated. The actual film that I did right after graduation. So my graduation had happened at the new school, and then there was that was the school graduation, and then the huge kind of all new school graduation, the undergrad, the grad school, the big ceremony was actually in Radio City Music Hall.
Nice.
So on the day that we had to be there, this writer director had contacted the I guess New York schools, other schools, Carnegie Mellon, NYU, a couple of the grad schools, the acting schools, because he wanted actors that looked like teenagers to audition for these brothers in a gay coming of age story film. And so the two brothers, one was jock, athlete, good looking, popular, the younger brother.
Yeah.
The older brother was struggling with his sexuality, was picked on, didn't fit in, felt awkward. And so as a person, I felt like right in between those two characters. I was an athlete, but I also, for being a late bloomer and being picked on because I had a high voice and hadn't hit puberty at a certain point, that I felt what the character, so it was called Dorian Blue. So I felt what the Dorian character felt like. So I asked to audition for both. And right after my audition, that day of graduation from the Actor Studio Drama School, I get called back in and asked if I could read another part. And the other part was a character named Spooky, that was to be the character Dorian's first kiss and first sexual experience in high school. And was it as a character that even for Dorian freaked Dorian out. And so it was a character that they called Spooky as a nickname because he was that weird guy who sat all alone, that everyone picked on, that everyone was, too afraid because he stared at you and did weird stuff. And so went outside in the waiting room, looked at the sides. It was only a short scene of 5 or 6 lines. And most of it was just staring and basically creeping out Dorian. And so I came back in, read the part, and then said, "You got it. And, we'll give you the information. We'll give you the details." And they said, "He's going to dance to a song, and we'll give you the song." And I did a dance, The Last Train to Clarksville. I made up my own dance. And it was that was my first independent film experience. Took the train up to Albany, shot the film 2 or 3 separate days, came back down. And that film did the festival circuit, won a lot of awards. And it's a great film if you Dorian Blues, but gay coming of age story.
Yeah. So, well, listen, for a kid who loved Halloween, your first role was Spooky. So I think that's, there's.
And my first kiss on camera was with a man.
Yes.
Well, I did. Well, I guess, yeah, it was my first kiss on camera. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's Hollywood, and that's the industry.
Yeah, good.
So in 2004, you did Law and Order. That was kind of your first big network. And then for a period of about 6 years, and again, you've done stuff, you continued working, but for a period of about 6 years until 2010, I think, you were just grinding and trying to get in there until you got your first regular gig on TV. During that time, how was it? Were you at any point thinking, hey, this may not work out. I'm kind of getting stuff, but I'm not getting enough to where I feel like I have a foothold?
Well, so 2004, I did Law and Order.
Yeah.
2004 was when Dorian Blues had run the festival thing. So at the same time, I was doing like, I literally, and this happens to me a lot, things overlap and it's fun, but it's also like when there's nothing going on, it makes it seem more dire or desolate. But I was in the middle of auditioning for the Law and Order when planning my trip to the San Jose Film Festival, CineQuest, in San Jose. And so I was planning to go that weekend, and I basically got a call back for the Law and Order and had to pretty much go straight to the airport after my audition, and found out while I was there on, walking around the festival grounds at, the campus grounds at San Jose, that I got the role while I was about to see my first, independent film role on screen. And so that led to other auditions, because I feel like in New York, maybe not now, but then, for you to be taken seriously and to be considered legit, you had to have one of the Law and Orders on your resume. That was like, whether you're a Broadway actor, theater actor, film actor, TV actor, coming out of school, that Law and Order gig was like the coronation. Also, it's how I got my union card. So, or when I finally had to get my union card and could afford it, could afford the initiation fee, which is important, right? I got paid enough to pay the initiation fee without having to add money to it. But yeah, so the Law and Order led to a lot of other auditions, and one of the auditions that it led to was a pilot that I had been auditioning for and testing for, and this is what you don't see on a lot of resumes and on IMDb, is all the close calls. So in that time, I had auditioned for a pilot with John Larroquette from Night Court, right, to play his son. I had tested for it. Like, I'd come out to LA. I had tested for a show where I was going to play Fred Willard's son, right? So that project called Spellbound, which was my first kind of foray into what actors or TV shows call testing. You test for the studio, you test for the network, and then they decide if they want to cast you as that series regular. It's not necessarily the screen test you think of like back in the day, like in the 50s and 60s, 40s. But so basically, I was testing for shows that, and what just wasn't getting them until that project came back around. The character was younger. There was a different script, and they were doing it for a different studio or different network. So it was originally an NBC show produced by Warner Brothers, and then it became a Warner Brothers show produced for the Fox network, like Fox, not studios, but network. So I auditioned again. I got a long story. It's a 2-year process of this audition. I finally got the role and basically had to leave and do it in 3 days after I got it to LA. So I'm in LA for 2 weeks and doing this, the biggest gig I ever got. My parents were Barry Bostwick and Christine Baranski played my parents in this pilot. And it was a really funny pilot. It was like Bewitched, but instead of a female witch, it was a male witch. And we were part of a witch family. So I was the younger, slacker brother that wasn't good at spells, but only really good at the spells that got to see girls bend over or walking hormone. But like not a good slacker with the real good spells. So I had that experience, and I try to, use that. My manager helped me get an agent from that experience, and into moving into LA from that was a huge decision I made when that show didn't get picked up. I had this bank account full of money, probably enough to last for 6 months, to move and last for 6 months. So I was like, what do I do? Do I use this momentum. I met all these agents that are going to send me out for other pilots, and see if I could book another one, right? Move to LA for pilot season, like people used to do it for pilot season. And I quickly realized to rent a furnished apartment, the amount of money that I had to do that in LA or even in the Valley where I live, was going to cost me way more money in 6 months than renting and putting my roots down for a year, getting into a year lease for something that was more affordable for me. And yes, I had to get a job and support myself through these auditions. And it was check to check for a while. You know, there's been these periods of time where it's check to check. And, you know, even to this day, your cyclic success level of getting a certain amount of gigs, getting a certain amount of money in your bank account, either using that money for a car or to invest in an apartment like I did, or just stretch that money out for as long as possible so that going into an audition, you don't have to feel like you need to book this to survive. So that's been the struggle in that time has been to maintain the momentum and keep the momentum going and keep my energy positive and forward and focused, while at the same time avoiding that extra factor that I'd have to juggle in an audition room that is the survival instinct of money, life, you know, and that's why I'm kind of feel lucky that I don't have any kids at this point, because especially now in the pandemic, that's just another factor that I see my friends struggling with that makes it, I feel, harder, or it seems like it gives you much more emotionally, peaks and valleys, both, but I feel like that's a factor that maybe at this point I'm glad or not ready to do. I mean, I'm sure at some point, you know, I'm so old, so I have to make it, you know, they say shit or get off the pot. You know, but
you're not old. If you're old, I'm old, and I'm not old.
Brother, 1 month from today, I turned 44.
I know. Yeah, I turned 45 3 months ago.
Well, happy birthday to us.
Yes, happy birthday to us. Yeah. Listen, yeah, it's mid 40s. It's where it's at. It's a great age. I totally understand on the kids. You know, I'm blessed to have a wife who still hasn't divorced me after almost 21 years. We have a almost 16-year-old girl and an almost 11-year-old boy, and they're awesome. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it is restrictive because I can go to New York, I can go to LA for 6 months and just you know, do stuff that I need to do from the acting perspective. It's not happening, right? That's the way it is, and it's okay. But you have to work with the circumstance. Yeah. So I get you. Thank you for letting me know about that. Now, again, kind of the project that I know you from is the other end of the line with Jesse Metcalf and Larry Miller, and that's where I saw you first. I'm like, hey, that's a great role. That's a good guy. I like him. And the speech that you know, Jesse's character gives at your wedding, at your character's wedding, is still a speech that moves me. I recently rewatched the movie during COVID times, again, catching up on stuff that I really enjoyed, and it still moves me. And again, I've been married for so long, but it still moves me, that speech. We're gonna link it, you know, right below this video. I want people to watch it because it still applies, and I really enjoyed that movie. So
you know, it wasn't that movie. So there was a movie that I booked right before that was a very similar character with Jesse Bradford that I actually moved. It gave me the opportunity, that and having some commercials running and residuals and TV shows that I was getting residuals from, and saving money allowed me to with that movie where I had to shoot it in New York for 6 weeks and be available in New York, allowed me to quit my job and not work, kind of a day job for, years. And which led into the full court press of booking a series of indie films that led to that one shortly after I actually met my wife, right before I did that film. And there's another thing. The irony is, like, I had booked a horror film that was putting me in Wisconsin for 2.5 weeks. That September, October. And so I was still auditioning for other stuff while I knew I had that role and was leaving at a certain point. And I had auditioned for The Other End of the Line, just one audition on tape, and was in Wisconsin filming that cinema verite project and having a great time, and get a call from two things happened. I got a call that I got The Other End of the Line and would have to leave for India 3 days after I got back to LA. So my passport, my immunizations, my shots, all that, my medical stuff that they do for insurance and for you to travel, I'd have to do all that in the 3 days that I got back. And then leave for India for 3 weeks. And so that type of stuff was a whirlwind. In that same period of time, actually right before I got that role, my manager, Vic, passed away while I was on that film. While I was doing Law and Order, my grandmother has passed away. But, those things, to me, it's like, I feel like as an actor, part of what you learn in school and what you try to perfect is bringing your emotional experience, your life experience, your intellectual experience, whether it's reading, exploring, what your hobbies are. You bring that into every role, right? And then you start to become a real adult with kids, friends and family, passing away, things in the world happening, bills, that you have to learn to cordon off those things that would adversely affect this particular project or this particular scene. So if I have to be happy-go-lucky and fun and a joyful character in a scene, and I'm having a real life tragedy, or I'm being evicted or whatever it is. I haven't been evicted, but it happens, right? And you got to pay the bills, you got to do all this stuff. It's this weird back and forth. Like, for all your growing up, it's like you learn to let loose of the inhibitions that you learn as an adult. Then you have to add in your experience of emotional spectrum of all the things you've dealt with in your life. And then you could imagine dealing with. So you only come from your own experience, and then you can imagine what other people have to go through, and that helps you get into these other characters and other experiences. And then you have to consciously be aware of what's going on in your real life so that it doesn't seep in or deter you from accomplishing what you want to in the scene as an actor, as a character, as a person. And both of those projects where people, close to me passed away, they happened to be projects where I was not happy-go-lucky, right? So I could literally filter my current emotions into that, which is sometimes a little dangerous if it's too traumatic of an experience. But the fact that I got The Other End of the Line was the total polar opposite of my manager passing away, and somehow I had to use what I could from one experience and block out what I could from the other and do this film. And then go back 3 days on the phone back and forth with LA, organizing doctor's appointments, getting my passport renewed, speeding all that stuff up and doing that stuff. But those 3 weeks in India also taught me a great lesson about like doing a film in another country, totally different system of government, system of society, closer than communism, but it's the structure of the caste system was still, Caste is a book that's been going around now that I hear is a great read, and actually I'm very interested in it. But seeing a place where the actual caste system existed at a point in India, and to a degree still exists, you have like, this is me coming from America, where you've seen the spectrum of, homeless to mansions to all this stuff. And the stuff is pretty spread out. But to go to Mumbai and see deeply religious people living on the street, celebrating Diwali, that was the holiday at that point, because it was in November or October. And then also seeing these shanty towns of shacks, almost like the Depression in America, shacks next to the most gorgeous hotels and skyscrapers I had seen in my life.
Yeah.
It was a jarring experience for me. And my character never left the US in the project. Like, so in the state of the actual plot of the movie, I am in either New York or San Francisco.
Yep.
And never even been to San Francisco. I didn't know what that was like. So I could kind of incorporate a new experience of being in a hotel and, not knowing the area. But the place in New York I had known. So that was something that I had to be like, all right, shut these weird experiences I've had at the airport and on the street and, with begging children coming up asking for money and food, and play this, sidekick, kind of character that gives him the voice of reason speeches and encourages him to go after the girl.
That's interesting. I did not know the whole thing was shot in India. I had no idea. That's a good thing for me.
I think there's one shot that I went to San Francisco for. So there's one shot that Charlie, is his name Charlie? Or
Wait,
my god's name is Charlie, I think, right?
Are you talking about the hotel scene with Larry, or?
So there's a scene where they're in the water by the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes. Okay.
They tour around San Francisco. That stuff was in San Francisco. I'm not sure about the house stuff. I think the house stuff was in India. But the only shot I was in that was actually in the United States was like a limo shot of us looking out the window, and you see like we're about to drive onto the Golden Gate Bridge, or you see the skyline of San Francisco. That was it. So I went to San Francisco for like a day and a half for that one shot, and everything else took place in India in a really nice hotel. But
what was it like working with Larry Miller, comedy genius? Anything interesting? Any kind of pickups that you started using after?
Yes. I don't know if I could say this. So anyway, I could say that Larry and I, we're both Jewish. We're both from New York. He's from Long Island. I'm from Brooklyn. We shared a lot of, we didn't work every day, so we shared a lot of off-camera time together in the hotel, eating at a restaurant or two. But Larry was kind of a bit of a germaphobe, and it's not the cleanest, type city sanitation, as you saw in Slumdog Millionaire. You see, that is what it is. If there's piles of garbage and dumps all over the place, and people, kind of selling food off the street and, picking through garbage. It's a sad state when you have people that are running these multi-conglomerate international corporations and, communications services like, take place in the movie. But anyway, all my time with Larry was we basically had breakfast pretty much every morning that we could, and enjoyed the time that we had in the hotel. He was actually nice enough because the hotel we were in was, I would say, not a 5-star hotel. It was not the nicest hotel. And it's an indie film, low budget. It's shot in India, saving money instead of shooting in America. So, but really, production well run. But it's still an indie film. And he, along with Jesse, had moved out of the hotel into a nicer hotel. And when Larry was done and going home, he was nice enough to basically yield his hotel room to me for the last couple nights, which was in a different part, a more urban, less remote part of Mumbai. So that was nice. And we shared a lot. We shared, he's much more Jewish than I. So I think he was, because of the religious aspect of a lot of what we were seeing, there was a lot of fireworks displays. There was a lot of, during a very religious holiday, Diwali, called Diwali. But it's basically like Festival of Lights. So it's like Hanukkah for Jews. But, and so you saw, and the lower and more desolate or more impoverished the people, the more religious they were. So you saw the very big night where everyone celebrates at the beach for the whole night, which was where our hotel was, right off the beach, fireworks all night. To get there, you had men, in religious garb, not walking there, but crawling in the way that every step or two, they would bend down, walk, and then kind of like kneel down, then kind of lay down fully, face first on the concrete, and kiss the floor, and then get up, walk a couple steps, do the same thing. And men and people were walking the same way that whole time to the beach, like kneeling, lying down, kissing the floor, getting up, kneeling. That's how they got. I was just like, the devoutness of it was, I think, kind of like awe-inspiring. And seeing a predominantly Hindu and Muslim religions, whereas Christianity and Judaism were secondary religions, where I had grown up with those being primary, was definitely enlightening. And, for some people, I think maybe would be jarring, but I was absorbing. It looked very interesting. I mean, it's just an interesting thing to see also animals walking on the street, like cows. The other two things too was the cultural differences that you never think about as an American or a European that grows up in a certain society where to say yes, you go, right? And, and then you're right. So, and to say no, you go, no. And then you say, how are you feeling? So, right? That's what this means to me. There, every time I asked a crew member or the makeup, the stylist, the hairstylist, a question, and they meant to say nod yes, they would go like this, right? Just to think that little simple thing of a nod into a head bobble is the difference between a yes and a so between two cultures, and I would never have known it had I not gone there. And this also is a spectrum or an arc towards like the richer, more wealthier classes, I think, have adapted and incorporated more Western habits and cultures, whether it's shaking hands or nodding. But the lower classes and the affectionate nature and the weirdness of seeing grown men holding hands that were not gay. That is an accepted form of like, when kind of walking down the street with your buddy and you got your arm around, his back and patting him on the back, or like whatever. That's how you would walk, down the street with a buddy, and there would be guys just standing on the street holding hands, and not in a sexual way.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a very enlightening, sometimes jarring, odd thing to adapt to and to understand, but to see that and to understand a different culture, and to see that informs my life and informs the work in a way that it's probably intangible to me.
Yeah, to me it's all fascinating. I want to learn all that stuff. To me, sociology was always, one of the more interesting topics. I want to know about people. I want to know what makes them different. It's all fascinating. So
Totally.
thank you. I did not know about the holding hands part. I knew about this. I knew about use one hand for one thing and one for another. I knew other aspects because I have Indian friends. I never knew about the hand holding. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So if we don't talk about Beauty and the Beast, we're going to get killed by people who love you. So in 2012, you arrived, quote unquote, and you got to be a regular in Beauty and the Beast, which I will readily admit I'm an idiot. I didn't watch it when it came out. I just watched the pilot literally today in prep for the interview and was blown away, because I had no idea that Kristen Crick is the lead in the series. I'm like, what have I been doing? I'm a huge fan of her. Where was I all this time?
Yeah.
So,
well, if you were to cast the Beauty,
who else would you cast?
Late
I agree.
Early 30s.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah.
So you got cast in that project. Did you know, kind of when you were shooting the? I'm assuming there was a pilot, but did you know when you were shooting the pilot of, hey, this thing I think is going to get picked up and it feels special?
It's interesting because I had done Life Unexpected for 2 shortened seasons, and that in every aspect, cast, crew, even network executives, the vibe to me, in a different circumstance, that show felt like it could have run for years, right? It was a family type show. Themes and characters kind of ran the spectrum of what people watched, and what people would want to watch week to week, especially when there were 22, 24 episodes for shows. And so that felt like it was going to last forever, and didn't. So coming into Beauty and the Beast, which the pilot was directed by the same director that directed me and executive produced Life Unexpected, that's how he brought me into, for the producers of Beauty and the Beast. And it was one of those things where I'd been testing for all these roles, and Beauty and the Beast, basically the biggest gig I've had, 70 or so episodes and 4 seasons worth of a character, and I didn't test for it. I went in, met the director, casting directors. Gary Fleeter was there as the director, executive producer that worked on Life Unexpected. Brought me in for the role. It was those 2 short scenes in the pilot. I did the scenes, and he basically said, I have to leave, but you should do it a couple more times and get a good take. And he basically looked at the producer and said, see, he walked out. There was other people waiting in the waiting room, but he had to go somewhere else, which was weird. Not my fault. That I had friends waiting to audition for the same role, and they see the director walk out and never come back. But we did it like 2 or 3 times each scene, and they were asking me as much as they were asking each other if that was good. And I told my agent, and like a week later, I emailed with Gary, and he's like, I think they're gonna offer you the role. And then my agent was like, yeah, you don't need to test. They want you. And I'm like, wait, what? I don't have to go through the grueling process of signing a contract for 7 years, seeing how much you would get paid if the show lasted for 7 years, then auditioning and not getting it. Wait, no, you got to the next audition. Then you audition again, and then you wait. Did I get it or not? And then you get it, and then you have to wait 3 months or 4 months to find out if the pilot got picked up.
Oh my
So
God.
that was the long answer. The short answer was, I don't know, because of my experience on Life Unexpected, what was worthy of getting picked up. I knew I liked the character and the arc of the story. I knew that the character was the voice of reason and was the character that that might rub the fans of the relationship the wrong way, but he was speaking towards the logical end of things. Like, you're risking your life. We're hiding from people that want to kill us, and here you are doing like crazy things because you want to get laid, right? So obviously, slowly I realized there was more than that, and I was turned into a supporter of VinCat, as they call them, Vincent and Catherine. But I always get cool names, and when I got the character JT Forbes, I felt like that was a name that would live in infamy. I felt like JT Forbes. I also played Math, which was a unique name on Life Unexpected. I always get weird name characters, and I feel like that's always a good sign when either I audition or the show is up for renewal or pickup. And honestly, didn't know. Like, I wasn't sure about the pilot. I saw the pilot, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure, because there was several aspects of the pilot. The acting I thought was all good. I felt like the chemistry between them, still to this day, I don't see that chemistry between most actors on any show, like between Jay Ryan and Kristen. The chemistry just like was there, right? And that was what stood out to me. And knowing that the president of the network, CW, Mark Pedowitz, was the person who brought this project into the fold and was a big fan of the original and wanted to redo it for a modern audience, that gave us a leg up. So I felt like it was a possibility. And Kristen, with her fan base and her history on the CW and the WB, that she alone, the chemistry, and then Mark were going to help this get past the finish line. So also getting picked up for a full season is, or I guess it's always 13 episodes, and then you find out halfway through whether it gets picked up for the back 9. But yeah, it was an exciting time to jump into a show only a year or two after my last show, and especially at a point when I needed money. I needed money. My previous bank account from the show before, which I wasn't in every episode, was dwindling.